Hi, thanks for stopping by to watch me, Leah Cook Kosher. Next, I want to show you how to make a tart shell. I use these all the time, whether they're for savory quiches or for like our French Apple Tart. And that's a beautiful one. You should check that video out, okay? But back to making pie dough. Let me show you how to do this one. I've pulled my pie crust from the refrigerator. I'm going to grab another blob. It's about ½ pound. And flour our work surface. And then just sort of shape this into a flat disc. You can see all the striations in the dough from the margarine and the shortening. Of course, what makes this kosher? No lard. We don't use lard. And just start rolling out. And just use your rolling pin to guide that dough in the direction you want it. Now, you'll feel it when it starts to want to stick. Just simply take the bench scraper and lift up and just add a little more flour. Now, this is basically doing the same thing as the previous pie crust, except we need a little bit bigger disc, and we're going to crimp the edge a little bit differently. I'm going to use my bench scraper and loosen. Now, pick up your dough that's been folded in half, center it again over that, and go ahead and lift. Now, I can see that I'm a little off on this edge, so I'm just going to gently, remember, romance it, okay? You have to really handle things gently. These type of tart shells have a very sharp edge, so actually cut your crust off if you're not careful. So I'm rolling that back into the bottom edge of the pan. Just spin it as you go. And just kind of lift that in, roll it down until it's sitting in a nice circle. And then just start rolling it just like we did the last one. I don't want a real thick edge on this. So I always start further away and roll back to what I've already rolled. That helps just get it under a lot easier. Now, there are other types of doughs for pie crust, and they handle differently. So this is especially used for the perfect pie dough. The more shortbread types of crust definitely don't take this sort of technique. Keep rolling, we're almost there. Now, if this is thin, look at, I have that trimmed edge. I'm just going to take a little piece and roll it in and under. These things are a little more forgiving than people realize. Okay, so we've got our circle, and then again, I'm just going to sort of firm up that roll around the edge. Now I am above the lip or the edge of the tart shell. Just pat that all up. And I like to go ahead and just give it a little bit of a flute right there. I'm not pushing very hard. Before you bake any tart shell, it's best to refrigerate it for maybe 10 or 15 minutes to really give the shortening a chance to set up, and then you'll have less shrinkage when it goes into the oven. So you should be able to do that too. It's a very easy to handle pie crust, and it is so worth the effort. Okay, give it a try. The next pie dough I want to show you, it's actually the same pie dough, different tins, are these little mini quiche pans or mini tart shells, and we make a lot of these at work. We're going to start by rolling out our pie dough, a little bit of flour, and just flatten it out into a disc. And we don't want to overhandle our pie dough, so light touch and move fast. There you go. Flour the top a little and just roll. So for these little tart shells, we don't want to have too thick of a dough, and we don't want to have dough too thin either. So we'll find the happy medium. That's looking about right. I'm going to take my tart shells, and I like to spray mine. It helps with the cleanup. I'm going to lay my shells down. I know that I've seen in books where a professional baker will just pick up the dough and lay it over a big cluster of these tart shells and somehow manage to make a bunch of shells. That would not be me. I've not been able to do that technique. Take my bench scraper, or you could use a little paring knife, and just cut around. It's just a rough trim. And now, and I want to be sure you can see this, I am breaking the pie crust off by just pushing it down against that edge, because that's sharp. Okay? So that's all you have to do. You want to have it so that, can you see that there is a width here from the edge of the shell to where my finger is? You don't want to smash that edge off, because then you have no framework there. It's just very thin, and when it bakes it'll be very brittle. Okay, so you want to go ahead, put the dough in, and so I'm forcing it back in. So I have an edge there that's thick. Okay, and that's really all you have to do with those guys. Again, you're going to want to chill these in the refrigerator before you bake them, and if you're going to bake them, as we usually do for many of our desserts, we bake them first before we fill them. So you're going to want to go ahead and use pie weights, even in these little guys. So, see, you can just go a little faster now that you know what you're doing. And that's really all there is to this. I'm sure you've gotten the drift now, and you're all sitting there amazed. That's it, simple little tarts, ready for the freezer or the oven. The last crust I'm going to show you today is one for a deep dish quiche pan. Basically the same idea, maybe a little more challenging with extra height. We'll find out. I'm going to start with my slightly bigger ball of dough, and I'm going to put flour on my board. All the usual things you've already heard me say by now. And just start rolling out into a circle. You're just going to use the end of the rolling pin as your guide to push that dough. And when you get to the end, you lift up. No smashing the dough into the board. I can feel it starting to stick. So I'm going to go ahead and use my bench scraper, lift. And this is such a fabulous recipe. Look, it's not breaking, it's not drying out, nothing. It's just gorgeous, easy to handle. But I want to be sure I have enough crust, because that is a deeper dish. Basically, I want enough to the bottom of the pan, enough for the side, and enough overhang. Trim some of that off. You don't need all that extra. And then, like always, take your bench scraper, give it a quick flip, pan in place, and just lift. And gently flip it over. And again, this is a sharp edge, so just work that dough down into the bottom there without stretching. You're kind of easing the crust in. Now this has kind of big flutes on the outside. I'm just going to use my finger and kind of gently press the crust into those little ruffles. Okay, and then I want to make a little edge, but I have too much dough. So I'm going to just I'm feeling with my fingers, you know, it's about a finger's width under there. So I'm just cutting that off. Just feel your way around. And again, just pick up and roll down to the edge. So I'm not making a huge ridge. I'm just going to give it a nice little finish. And just roll back to meet the place that's already been rolled back. And these are very impressive quiches. You know, they're tall, filled with, you know, cheese and vegetables. Again, go around to sort of true up your little edge there. And then, just because it's simple, I just do my little ridge using 2 fingers and the one on my right. Just kind of push that in. Okay. And there you have it. Easy as pie.